Good evening. Welcome to the President's Council, League of Women Voters, Maplewood South Orange, LWV Board of Ed debate. I am Michelle Bobrow of the League of Women Voters. League of Women Voters is a trusted, nonpartisan organization, never endorsing or opposing candidates or parties. We work to inform the public through advocacy and public information, such as tonight's debate. We place our emphasis on voting with registration drives, registration in high schools and colleges and other public venues, and provide candidate information through our site, vote411.org. Our League of Women Voters of New Jersey.org site provides information about this November's ballot question on benefits for veterans at continuing care retirement communities, and there's also information on the back table in this room. League was formed in 1920 when the 19th Amendment was passed to educate women about voting procedures and issues. We continue to do so to this day, as evidenced by this debate. If you are interested in our work, I suggest you look at the back of the room for information on joining us on the eve of our centennial in 2020. Thanks to the members of the League of Women Voters of Maplewood South Orange and the President's Council for arranging this public event to introduce the candidates for Board of Education. Our moderator is Catherine Kazan of the Wayne Area League of Women Voters. She is a League-trained moderator and will inform you of the format for tonight's debate.
My mic isn't on. Good evening, and thank you, Michelle, my trainer, by the way. Not too nervous. My name is Catherine Kazan, and I'm a board member of the Wayne League of Women Voters and your moderator for this evening. The League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization, encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. Education and voting are core concerns of the League. We are committed to providing fact-based information about issues and the positions candidates take on those issues to help voters make their own decisions and participate in the electoral process. The League never supports or opposes candidates for office or political parties. Any use of the League name or of footage from this forum in campaign materials, literature, or advertising of any kind, including internet, cable, or television, has not been authorized by the League of Women Voters. Tonight, there are 7 candidates vying for 3 seats on the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education. Let me introduce them. Narda Chisholm Green, Thayer Joshua, Stephanie Lawson Muhammad, Erin Siders, Carrie Smith, Sharon Tannenbaum Kraus, and Johanna Wright. Candidates will be called upon to answer questions in the order that I choose. The first to answer will have 1 minute, 30 seconds. All candidates thereafter will have 1 minute. There are 7 questions provided by the sponsor. We will then ask 3 questions from the audience, and each candidate will have 1 minute to answer those. I will continue to call upon you in the order that I choose. The timekeepers will signal 1 minute, 30 seconds, and red for stop. Please keep an eye on the timekeepers. We will then conclude with 2-minute closing statements, followed by closing remarks and important election information. So let's begin. Question number 1 will begin in alphabetical order, starting with Narda. The question is, what do you consider to be the top 3 most urgent issues facing our school district today, and how do you see the role of the Board of Education how do you see the role of the Board of Education addressing these issues?
To turn up my mic. My name is Narda Chisholm Green, and I think the top 3 areas that we should focus on and that we need to address include the following. The number 1 thing is ensuring that our facilities are up to date and monitoring what happens with that bond that we have. The other thing that's important is integrating our schools and how we do that, making sure it's done the right way. And then I think the other thing that's very important to me is ensuring that our children are able to achieve at the levels that they need to and have the support levels that they actually need. What we're talking about right now is the important issues in our district. but are we happy with what we have in our district today? Are we happy with the education that we've received? Are you guys happy about what you received as far as an education? Is the curriculum that we have today what you want it to be? What does CUSAC mean? Does it mean that you met the basic standard, or does it mean that you have creme de la creme in your curriculum? I need to understand what that means. And I think it's critical that we ask the people that are running and the people on the board, what does that mean for us? Do we have creme de la creme when it comes to our curriculum? Is this what we want? Is this the education that we want in our district for our children?
I would say the first issue is facilities. We've talked about the bond at multiple stops as we've interviewed. As we've been around this process of going out and meeting people, the facilities need to be updated, and that's what we're about to do, spending $85 million just on the elementary schools, along with the middle and high school as well, building additions to everything but the middle schools. The second thing is integration. Integration has been an issue in this district for over 30 years. Okay, that was really fast. All right. Integration has been an issue in this district for over 30 years, and we have the opportunity to finally get it right. The last thing I would say is communication, something that the Board of Education has a lot of control over. As a board member, I would advocate for clear, consistent, concise communication from the board to the public, and that is just not only the public, but employees of the district as well.
Stephanie.
So I would say these three issues are climate and culture, rebuilding our leadership team, and a successful plan for the intentional integration and innovation. And I say all three of them because they actually really dovetail into each other. Climate and culture will trump vision any day. And so if we can't fix the climate and culture in all of our schools, in particular in the high school, then our planning to actually deliver equity for our students will never be realized. As everyone knows, we have a lot of interim in our administration team right now, so there's an excellent opportunity for our new superintendent to build a very strong leadership team. The board has to support him in the onboarding of these new administrators that will come in. And as we all know, this plan for our intentional integration is critical, and getting the community aligned behind it and community communicated is critical.
Erin.
Hi, the three issues I have are the long-range facilities plan, the integration plan, and our initiative to offer universal free pre-K to all residents. These are all issues that will be followed and driven by the superintendent and his administrative team, but these issues all impact our students. We need to have facilities that are safe, clean, and modern. We need to integrate our schools. And we know that early childhood education is a way to help students improve as they move up into our school district. So those are the three issues.
Gary.
Not in any particular order, but the three I would say are better communication from the district at all levels. As we're embarking on the facilities integration plan, we need to do it right and do it hopefully under budget, and also to retain and recruit quality leadership in the administration, staff, and teachers, and with the big thing of retaining them, because we've had a lack of quality leadership and they go somewhere else after a year or 6 months or something like that.
Sharon.
So I'm going to tackle issues a little bit differently. I'm going to separate issues from our to-dos, our plans. I think the three urgent issues that are facing the board right now are they all boil down to communication, consistency, and accountability. Without those three things being dealt with and really being managed and seen through, we are not going to be able to successfully have a long-range facilities plan and a rollout that is going to be smooth and not bumpy. We are not going to be able to have an integration plan that will be carried through with input from the community and from stakeholders and from experts that will be rolled out smoothly and without bumps. We need to really be able to communicate with each other between the board and the community, with parents and teachers. We need to be consistent. That means we need to have hires that are permanent and stay here, teachers who are professionally developed and who want to be here. And we need accountability, not only for our administration, but for each other on the board.
Johanna.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for having us. I would say students first. We have to put things in place to support our students here in the district, and that's all students, whether they're gifted, they have special needs. We have the students who are in regular ed who may be falling through the cracks. We have students who have come back from Montrose, which was our alternative school, who are languishing in Columbia High School without any supports or anything in place to help them. So that's my number one, and it's always going to be number one with me. Number two, I'm concerned with the communications and the lack of transparency. That has always been a concern of mine, and I will continue to work on that. And three, I'm concerned about equity. Everybody knows the things that we've been going through, the Office of Civil Rights, the ACLU, all the things that have been happening in the district. And so we have to take a look at that. We have to do more than take a look and have rhetoric. We have to do the work.
Thank you. This next question will begin with you, Thayer, and come around and back to Narda at the end. The question is, board members must find ways to work together to carry out their responsibilities, even when they do not agree or even get along. Please give an example of a time when you were able to help resolve a disagreement or work within a complicated group dynamic to achieve a positive result.
I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. Professionally, I've had to deal a lot with that. My work involves acting on a regular basis with legal, operations, finance, data stewards, program managers, and product developers. What I have to do is make sure all 6 of those groups, along with my team, are on the same page in terms of getting what we want to get done, and getting it done efficiently, smoothly, and accurately. I've been doing this work for over 20 years. I have an MBA from Columbia, so a lot of that training was about working in collaborative groups, working with people from different backgrounds, different ethnic groups, different religions, to get together on the same page whenever you have a project in front of you and getting it done. I believe that that skill set translates well to being a board member where you're working with 8 other people and you have to think not just independently but individually to come up with your goals and align them with the mission of the district.
Stephanie.
So I have a 20-year career in technology, and I'm currently in the consulting area. And we often will go into a client where we're dealing with various lines of business and enterprise teams in which everyone has a different point of view and different goals that they're trying to get in. And so ultimately, one of my key skill sets is on, number one, understanding what the concerns are across the different groups, and then helping them to see each other's issues, ideas, and bring the conversation up where we are finding more of the common issues that is getting the company forward. So, because at the end of the day, all of those lines of business are part of one company, and they have to move the company forward together. We do that through workshops. I do that through one-on-one conversations and bringing that back to the core group. And it's a key skill that I've had throughout my career in doing that both here in this position and in others. I didn't see the 30 seconds, sorry.
Thank you, Stephanie. Your turn, Erin.
Hi. At where I am employed, I'm a senior project manager, and I jokingly say I manage the process. I don't actually manage people. So a good portion of my job is working collaboratively with different teams and working with folks that I can't make them do anything. But what we always go back to is, what's the goal and the mission? And being able to understand what we need to do. And even though you don't report to me, I still need you to do this work, and we need to get it done timely and implement it with as little problems as possible. And I've been at my company for 22 years in various roles, and this has been successful for me.
Harry.
As a small business owner, local business owner, I manage medical practices, and working with doctors and staffs is very difficult. Lots of disagreements amongst people. So I try to manage them and get them to agree, sit down and listen to everyone's opinions and thoughts, and try to get them all to come to some agreement. It's a lot about sitting and talking and working through everyone's problems. I'm also, as I've mentioned numerous times in different debates and forums, I am a volunteer EMT on a rescue squad, and you also have lots of divisions there too, and do the same skill set. Is you kind of sit down, you talk about your disagreements, you work through all your problems.
Sharon.
I'm sorry, Kathy, would you mind repeating the question?
Not a problem.
Just want to make sure.
Board members must find ways to work together to carry out their responsibilities, even when they do not agree or even get along. Please give an example of a time when you were able to help resolve a disagreement or work within a complicated group dynamic to achieve a positive result.
Thank you. So I'm a journalist and a magazine editor by trade, and while my day-to-day isn't really like The Devil Wears Prada, the characters are definitely there. I think a really good example is I was the .com editor of Us Weekly, and I was charged with starting their style and beauty site. So it involved a lot of collaboration with the very big egos of the magazine side and the very hardworking egos of the .com side. But not only that, I managed a team of 3, and I'm not sure how familiar a lot of people in here are with millennial work ethics, but it was very that stereotypical type of work ethic, and I am the anti-millennial work ethic, and so it was really a lot about having them, how to talk to them and how to nurture them to really get them to understand the job responsibilities and that we are a team. And it was a great hurdle to go over, but I'm proud that we succeeded and we became one of the top fashionandbeauty.com
Thank you,
sites.
Sharon.
Thanks.
Johanna.
Well, I don't know which angle to come from, whether I come from here as an educator. I was chosen by the administration as well as the teachers union to be the disputes person for the district. In other words, if there were administrators and teachers or teachers and upon teachers who had disputes, I was the person that would sit and listen to what was going on and make a decision. I am proud to sit here and say that every decision that I made was adhered to by the individuals involved. Also as a coach, not just a regular coach, but an award-winning coach, a coach who's known nationally. I know how to put teams together and to work. But the thing is that you have to know the things that you need to do and the roles that you bring to the table. Everybody brings something special. And if we can tap into the things that people are really sure about and know about, then we can do a lot more. For instance, if I have a point guard that can't dribble, we're going to teach him how to dribble.
That's your time. Thank you so much. Sorry. And finally, Narda.
So, interesting question that you have to work collaboratively. I've had 20 years in the same company almost, and I've got various opportunities to manage different types of people. But I think what brings people together is understanding the goal. That's the first thing that you need to do. And the other thing that brings people together is not taking things personal. This is not personal. You're doing something because you want to get the job done. You're doing something because it's important and critical to everyone in the room. And a lot of times you just have to sit in the room, talk it out, and draw it out so that everybody's clear on what your goal is and ensure that you can get it done together. So I'm very collaborative in that space. I'm able to work with anyone because I do not take things personal. This is a job. I want to get it done, and I'm going to sit down and get it done together.
Okay. Thank you all. The next question will begin with Stephanie and back around. The question is, for the new candidates, prior to this run for the Board of Education and for current members prior to serving on the BOE, in what ways have you gotten involved in our school district?
So prior to my original run in 2013, I really had only lived here for 2 years before I ran for the board. So I moved here in 2011, had 3 children. My son was at the middle school, and I had 2 daughters at the elementary school. I got involved by going to school board meetings and learning about the issues that were facing our district. From that, understanding that we had concerns around equity and concerns around de-leveling the middle school, I was involved in lots of conversations with groups that were also concerned with those same issues. And so I really was seeking to understand what the history of the district was. And again, it was only 2 years before I ran for the board. So a lot of my energy and effort has been since I actually have been a board member for the past 6 years, because I only had 2 years prior to. So with the 30 seconds, over those 6 years, I have given my full commitment to this district, working collaboratively with other board members and addressing issues that affect all of our students. And it's very important, it's very complex work, and understanding how all those components come together is very essential to being able to do the work. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Erin?
Hi. I have about 14 years experience volunteering and advocating in our school district. Started out as a class parent at Marshall School, where my son was a 3-year-old pre-K student. I've served on the PTA and HSAs at Jefferson, Maplewood Middle, and Columbia High School. I served 2 years as the president of the Special Education Parents Advisory Committee. I served on the Code of Conduct Revisions and Affirmative Action Committees for the district. And I also served about 8 months as Soma Action's education co-chair. What drove me to become involved in our schools was my son, who was diagnosed with autism and ADHD when he was 3 years old, and just trying to get an understanding of the whole world of special ed and how we deliver special education in our district.
Okay. Gary?
My involvement with the school district has basically been with the South Mountain PTA. I jumped at the chance of joining it when they were looking for a treasurer when my daughter was in 1st grade. I've been on the South Mountain PTA since then. I jumped at the chance to join the South Mountain School HSA when they were looking for people, so I just joined that this year. I also was recently appointed to the New Jersey State PTA Health and Safety Committee and also the Family Engagement Committees. I've also been a class parent for some of my kids' classes as well too. I like being involved, and as in the position on PTA, is also class parent because it helps me know about what's going on in the school district that I wouldn't know because of lack of communication.
Okay. Sharon?
So I've lived here 5 years, and I've been in the district with my oldest child for a year and a couple months now. So my involvement really started last year. Prior to that, I was trying to get them through preschool and manage some stuff that was going on with my oldest. So he qualified for special ed, and my first year in the district really was about managing him and managing that process in special ed. And that honestly is what drove me to want to run here and step up. I think that, yes, I may not have served on PTAs, but you don't really necessarily have to serve on the PTA to be a board member. I have fresh energy, I've got fresh voice, I've got a fresh point of view, and I'm excited to apply that to the Board of Ed.
Johanna?
I've been a resident for over 30 years or so, 35 years or so, in South Orange, Tuxedo Park. I have been an educator here for as long. While an educator in the district at South Orange Middle School, I was the advisor to student council for over 20 years. I was the founder of the Martin Luther King Club. I was also the founder of the dinner dance that all the children still enjoy today. I also was started the Washington, D.C. trip along with international dinners so that we could better understand different cultures. I also founded the Hall of Fame at South Orange Middle School. As you can see, and I was also a coach, a basketball coach, as well as a cheerleading coach. But the bottom line is all of my involvement has been for children. The talent shows that we've had, opera club, all kinds of things. I could go on, and I'm really, really excited, and I want to continue
Thank you,
that
Johanna.
work for our children.
Sorry, that's your time.
No problem.
Thank you. Narda.
So I've been involved with regards to my children. I volunteered. I would change my schedule around so I could ensure that I could be at, whatever activities they had during the years as they grew up here. I had the opportunity to serve as a Midnight Madness co-chair for 1 year, and I'm currently a Boosters member where we fundraise for a lot of the extracurricular activities for the schools here. I'm really excited to step up today, set up this year, to become a board member if elected. I want to talk the talk, I want to lead by example, and I want to be there, and I want to make the decisions that are best for our children.
My wife reminded me this morning that we moved here 5 years ago today. So I don't feel as sore as I did 5 years ago at that time. But since I've been here, I've gotten involved. I've attended board meetings. I have joined the Marshall PTA. I'm not on the board, but I am a member. I review the budget every year and go to Ice Cream Social. I wanted to get more involved, so I joined the Community Coalitions on Racist Schools Committee to get an idea on why integration has been such a thorny issue in this district for so long, and also joined the Parenting Center's Intentional Integration and Innovation Committee, which is comprised of elementary school parents who are helping with the district try to figure out what are the best ways and potential pitfalls that we will come across when we finally get the integration plan up and running.
Thank you. Next question will begin with Erin. Question is, the New Jersey School Boards Association Code of Ethics states, quote, I will carry out my responsibility not to administer the schools, but together with my fellow board members to see that they are well run, end quote. What do you need to accomplish over the course of your 3-year term in order to personally claim you have helped run the district well, understanding you are not tasked with administering the schools? Erin.
For me, it would be leaving the school district in a better situation than it is today. It would be helping the superintendent to hire his administrative team, which he needs to do because everyone who reports to him is an interim, making sure that our district's policies and procedures and curriculum are maintained and are still up to date. When Dr. Fakara came on board, that was one of the things that he did when he brought his interim staff in, was that they had to get our policies and procedures and curriculum up to date. I also will hope that for our students, that their journey in the schools would be better than my son's journey in our schools, that parents will not need to advocate as much as they do today, that we would have policies that actually govern the quality of education for our students.
Harry.
I guess my goal would basically be to make the school district better. I am a product of the school district. Like to see go back to where it was when I was a student, because I think that was a very good time, and this district was well run at that point in time. Now, due to the lack of communication and retention of appropriate staff members and having interim people, it's not effective, so we need to make sure we have the appropriate people, and as a board member, I would make sure that we do have the necessary people, that the people are retained, and we recruit the necessary people. And that as a board member, I would make sure the administration has all the support that they need to bring the district back to where it was years ago.
Okay, thank you. Sharon?
So I think what I would need to make sure that the district is well-run is a very open and honest and trusting relationship with the board's employee, which is the super. And I'm confident that we can do that. Dr. Taylor has been impressive to me, especially in his level of communication with parents and parents' concerns so far. And I think as a board, as long as we have those lines open, that we can talk to each other and make sure that we're still all on the same page, that he's listening to the community, that the board is listening to the community, that we can really make sure the district is improved and well run. And I would impress upon him two things, I think. One, that we need to be able to reach every student, each and every student, to make sure that they have what they need to get their education. And two, that we need to shore up our teachers so we have effective, excited, and devoted teachers in our district for our students.
Thank you. Johanna?
I think the most important thing is governance and understanding what it is that what your job responsibilities are. And as a board member, it is not to overstep your bound and run the school district. That's why you hire a competent superintendent to make sure that our job is to govern him, to make sure that he's doing what he's supposed to do and look at best practices. I've learned quite a bit as I'm sitting as the vice chair of the Essex County College Board of Trustees, who was on probation, and we were able to work together through governance and the things that we needed to do as a board to get things done. And you know, when you look at the dysfunction that we have on the board in terms of overstepping our bounds and going in trying to run the schools, it is a problem. So I would certainly stay in that governance lane.
Thank you. Narda?
So I think what's really important is that you have to not micromanage the person you put in charge to do the things that we want, which is the superintendent. We're going to have to allow him to do his job and just ensure that what he's doing is meeting our district goals. The other thing that's important is to ensure that as a board team that we are listening to our students and making decisions best for our students first, and not doing things that are not in line with what's best for children. The number one thing that I sat down with children last year is that nobody listens to them, and we need to listen to them. They're our number one priority, and if you're here running again, you should be here only because you want to help children and you want to do what's right for our children in this district, and that's what I want to do.
I would start with the budgeting process and making sure it's as transparent as possible. A lot of times people want to know where the money is going, and I know Paul Roth and the district started a zero-based budgeting approach in the last couple of years that has really seemed to give both administrators and the district an eye on how, and starting from what you had last year and going forward, start with zero, start with nothing, and tell me what you need. I would also look at compliance. We need to make sure we are compliant with our policies that we have right now, even though, and make sure that the ones that are not updated need to be updated. That is our job as board members to write and pass policy that we want the administration to enforce. And then finally, I would talk about, again, communication. The board is responsible. The board needs to communicate consistently and clearly to the public about what we are doing to help make sure the administration is well run. Schools are well run, sorry.
Thank you. Stephanie?
So over the last 6 years, there has been a definite cycle in the board's effectiveness to stay in their lane. And over the past 2 years, our board has definitely done a lot better in realizing what our role is and allowing the administrators to do their job. When things go off the rails, it is generally where there's not proper visibility to the board and confidence in the board that things are getting handled properly. So with Dr. Taylor, my biggest thing is that we really understand what the plan is and what the progress against the plan is. And that's how he has communicated with us. We understood that was his process during the interview process. And so I'm confident that we will be able to effectively serve as a board that is supporting a superintendent, because we're going to have visibility to exactly what our vision is and then how we are progressing against that vision, and then giving that feedback to course correct as necessary.
Thank you. Okay, next question, we will begin with Carrie. Question is, one of the main jobs of the Board of Education is to guide our superintendent. As a member of the BOE, what steps will you take to ensure that the superintendent and his team are working toward making South Orange Maplewood School District one of the top-ranked school districts in New Jersey? What are some specific examples of what other successful school districts are doing that you believe the superintendent and his team should be working to implement here? Carrie.
First, I would make sure that the board sets the goals for the superintendent, and that we look at the goals and evaluate him 6 months, year, 18 months, and continue to evaluate him, make sure he's meeting the goals. We should not let him set his own goals. The board should be setting his goals. He works for the Board of Education. We should make sure that all the policies that the board has established are being followed, and if they're not, we need to have them be held accountable for them. Some effective things within other districts, I would have to do some research on that and come up with it and see what best practices are at other districts and try to implement some of them here as well too.
Karen.
Here we go. I think I'd approach the superintendent and the relationship between the board and the super, just how I manage my employees at work. And it's about establishing trust that I spoke to, and it's about kind of trusting that they're going to do the job, but also keeping a watchful eye on it. I think one of the things that I would impress upon the super, really that I know to be true of other successful school districts, is having permanent administration, like a director of special services, which we're hiring for now. We need to make sure that the hires that we're making, from teachers to the administration, they're excited to be here, that they want to be here for the long haul, they're here for the right reasons. And I think that we also need those teacher evaluations. They need to be consistent and thorough, and we need to be giving the teachers feedback, because that's what they really need to get better. They need that feedback. And I think as long as I'm going to trust the board, the board trusts the super to get that job done, it should be a pretty hands-off relationship.
Johanna.
Oh, it's a great question. Number one, I would look at competent hires. We've been hiring incompetent people for positions that they have absolutely no expertise in, and then we end up hiring a consultant to do the job for the people that we hired. And so when do we get to put all of that money on our students? I would also look at the outsourcing that we're doing, which has not been the greatest thing for our district. I fought hard when I was a teacher here not to outsource paraprofessionals, not to outsource our custodians. We need people who are very familiar with our students. I would also look at security, especially at Columbia High School, and what's happening there. I would say a lot more than I should, but I don't think it would be in the best interest of what's going on. But we need to look at that very, very carefully. We need doors that lock. I would also look into the staff being supported and feeling wanted and having a voice, which they have not had in quite some time.
Sorry, thank you so much. Narda.
So I think I keep saying I think, right? I know what's important to our district. And in knowing that, I think we have to look at accountability for our board in order to support our superintendent. When I talk about accountability, I'm also thinking about being honest about what we've shared with the community already. So I know last year we talked about magnet schools, what Montclair does, how that helped with integration, the examples that they shared. And I've heard several times that we were looking at themed schools as well. But I haven't heard anything else about that, and that means to me that I'm concerned that we're not going in that direction, and I hope that we still are. So as a board, we should be accountable for what we say and what we do, and we have to start by being honest with the public, honest with our community, honest with our children, and we're going to assist the superintendent in meeting his goals,
Thank you, Narda. That's your time.
our goals.
Zaire.
That was a pretty wordy one. Can you repeat that for me, please?
Oh, sure. One of the main jobs of the Board of Education is to guide our superintendent. As a member of the BOE, what steps will you take to ensure that the superintendent and his team are working toward making South Orange Middle School District one of the top-ranked school districts in New Jersey? What are some specific examples of what other successful school districts are doing that you believe the superintendent and his team should be working to implement here?
Okay, I did get it. So I would say a lot of those, if you're defining success as top ranked, a lot of those tend to be wealthy and homogenous. We're not the latter. We have some of the former. So I'm not as concerned about where we rank as how our students feel when they walk in our buildings and when they walk out. 5 seconds on the story, my son runs to school the few days I get to drop him off, and I never want that feeling that he has when he's running to the building, when he should be walking, to go away from him. In terms of superintendent goals, I was at the board retreat where the board and the superintendent went over those goals. They seem to be relatively realistic, but stringent, and I was happy to see that he didn't ask for goals that were too easy for him to meet, and he wanted goals that would that were what are in line with what the community has been asking for, specifically with the integration and innovation plan.
Stephanie.
So similar to Thayer, I am not concerned about our ranking in the way that the state currently ranks. So I'm going to repurpose the question for what would it take to have be the top district for equity in the state. And that would be what I want to see us doing. And so in an example of what some districts that are doing that, I was just at the New Jersey School Boards Tuesday and Wednesday, and I went to 2 different sessions on equity. And it really is interesting how the demand for equity comes into a district and whether it's being driven by administration or driven by the teachers, or it's being driven by the community. And here it's largely started by being driven by the community, and now we have administration that is ready to get this done. We've got to put it front and center for administration and let them do their job. They have to be very transparent with what's going on, and we need to see how all of the things in play are dovetailing to get the goals.
Thank you. Erin, last but not least.
So the most important piece of work that the superintendent has to do is hire and experience leaders as part of his administrative team. We need to make sure that with all the various projects that the superintendent is overseeing, that there's accountability in terms of having monthly reports to the Board of Ed and to the community on the status of these various projects. And also, we need to engage community members who have expertise in certain areas. We have a long-range facility plan, and there are folks in our community who are civil engineers who have that experience where they can really help us understand what's in these project plans better than we can as lay people.
Okay, next question, and we will begin with Sharon. Our PTAs and HSAs contribute significant financial resources to improve the educational experience and environment for our students. What are some examples of items currently covered by our parent groups that you feel should instead be addressed in the district budget? And if elected to the Board of Education, a role that will task you with budgetary oversight of the district, how will you address any funding disparity among our students at different schools?
At Marshall, the PTA did a video for Back to School Night, and in it, the president and the vice president had a really funny thing about how they didn't know the PTA except for they got notes from them when they forgot something, when they needed to volunteer, or that they needed money. And so I think oftentimes the PTAs, especially in some of our schools are relied on too heavily to provide things for our children, when really I think that we should take a look at the budget and really figure out where we can find money to support our children, to support the to support students, each and every student in each and every school, to help them get the education, not only the academic education, but the social and the emotional education that they need. I think the budget has some room. We can go in there, and I think one of the ways that we can do that is with a really strong special services department. If we can improve our special services department, if we can improve what services we're offering all of the children, we can theoretically and ideally bring some of those children back in from out of district.
Joanna.
Oh, boy, the PTA, I don't know how I would have survived, clearly, all of my years teaching, not only here, but in White Plains at White Plains High School, without the PTA. Parents are really, really important in school buildings in terms of assisting students with extra things and that they may need. However, with the taxes that we pay in South Orange and Maplewood, our children should be experiencing an exclusive private school education. We have to know how to spend our money. We have the money. We just don't know where to put it. We're putting it in places where the money does not belong. We can look at our health coverage. There are things that we can do within our two communities to bring our health insurance down by bringing our two townships
that's your
in.
time. I'm sorry.
Man, I love this question. I hope y'all give me a chance to come back.
Oh, I saw a stop.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Would you like to continue for 30 seconds? We made a boo-boo. Mike.
Oh, sorry. The thing that I really hate to see is our kids canning on the streets for money, for sports equipment, for those kinds of things. Listen, I was a coach here, and the coaches, when I coached here, we were one of the lowest paid coaches in the state, but we had some of the best teams. So we have to do a lot better where our children are concerned, especially with athletics and plays and art and music. These things are vibrant. These are the things that made us a blue ribbon district that we were. And when we remove those things like auto mechanics and home economics. And
Thank you, Joanna. Clearly passionate about that question.
yes.
Narda.
Okay.
Narda, you're up.
So the HSA and the PTA, they are very generous to our school district, and we would not be able to fund a lot of the things for our kids in some aspects without their support. So I think we'd have to figure out a way to look for extra funding in our budget, figure out how some of these things can be covered. I'm not clear, but I remember last year meeting with some folks who are part of the PTA, and one of the things came up is air conditioning in the classrooms that they had to purchase for some classrooms, but not every school had that opportunity to get air conditioning. That shouldn't be their responsibility. It definitely should be ours. It's very hot in the summer. Our kids don't have to burn up. I know it's even really hot in high school. So personally, I think it's very critical that we look again to see where we can offset some of the load of the PTA and the HSA if possible.
I hear.
So with the facilities and integration plan, the goal of socioeconomically integrating the elementary schools should solve some of the PTA funding disparity, but depending on how the plan is actually implemented, it may not actually address the HSA between MMS and SOMS. I know that's been an issue in terms of field trips, et cetera. Things such as the Jefferson playground, which was funded by the PTA, I would look at that as a capital expense that should be funded by the district. I know specifically at Marshall that they bring in Broadway actors every year that the PTA sponsors. It's a wonderful arts enrichment, but again, that's something that if we do value arts in this community, as we do a lot of volunteering arts in terms of the wonderful musicals that take place at the middle schools and high schools. Those are things that we should look to fund within the school budget and not exclusively through PTAs and volunteers.
Stephanie.
So there's just not enough money to fund our district. And we know that year over year, costs are going up. And having the support of our PTAs and HSAs is essential. I think making sure that we identify which areas are appropriate for funding and which areas are not is critical. Use the example of laptops. When we were working on one-to-one computing and you had a school that had more resources and parents were funneling money into the laptops, there's equity issues in that one school got laptops faster than another. That shouldn't happen. And so there have been lots of discussions at President's Council on pooling resources, and I know those conversations continue. So we just have to make sure that there's equity in how we're using it and that we're using it for appropriate items.
Erin.
So we know that the HSAs and the PTAs fill those gaps between what the district can afford and what our buildings need. Unfortunately, that has resulted in inequity in terms of what schools get what types of PTA-funded items like air conditioning, artists in residence, playgrounds. And then I look at the middle schools where Psalms goes on a trip to Washington, D.C., and when my son was at Maplewood Middle, it was a trip to Camp Mason overnight. These are things that really should come out of district funding. It should not be the responsibility of parents in terms of fundraising through the PTA and HSA. I am for pooling resources when needed to get rid of that inequity, to have a elementary school PTA versus a specific school PTA.
Harry.
I'm speaking as a past treasurer of the South Mountain PTA, so I kind of have some knowledge on what goes into the budget and what is being spent. I think a lot of the things that should be taken off of the PTAs that we're currently doing and should be made district-wide is the residency in arts that some of the PTAs do, some of the technology that the PTAs pay for, air conditioning. Recently, the past few years, South Mountain School paid to put in air conditioning in some of the classrooms. That should be a capital expense that's paid by the district. Updating some of the facilities, that should be a district responsibility. And also buying books for the classrooms and for the library, that should also be a district expense. I think we can look at the district budget and come up with money, and what is being done at one PTA, some of the programs should be done at some of the other PTAs. I think the PTAs need to support the teachers more and give the teachers more of what they need in the classroom rather than trying to have the district give the PTAs shouldering that budget responsibility.
Okay. Question number 7. We'll begin with you, Johanna. Special education seems to be on a more positive trajectory than it has been in years. If elected to the Board of Education, what will you do to keep this department moving forward?
To keep the special ed department going, first of all, you hire competent people. You also adhere to IEPs, 504s, and the things that the students need, and there should be some consistency. I was the first teacher to have inclusion in my class back in the 80s when it was something new to do. I also did a lot in working with the special ed community with the first conference on autism. I had a child who was placed in my class who was autistic. I knew nothing about it, and I went out and did my research and brought professionals back to have a workshop for the district as well as Seton Hall University. So we all have to do our part and do our research, do your homework. I used to tell my children all the time, get your homework done. Don't take what I tell you as gospel. Access information for yourself, and that's what we need to do here with the special needs. And when we look at all of the lawsuits and the legal fees that we have, is because we're not doing what we need to do for kids that we are demanded to do by the state, and we must adhere to those things. And then we'll stop the lawsuits. I mean, our most vulnerable population, we're just, overlooking. It's not a good thing. So that's what I would do.
Thank you. Narda.
So I think what's important, I know what's important, is the special education director that we have today. Last year, she rolled out this fantastic plan that she was going to put in place, and I'm hoping that she can stay and finish and execute on that entirely from end to end. The other thing that's important is following and understanding how our special education children are doing over the course of the time that they're in school. I can't understand how a child or children who've been in special services for almost 8 or 9 years and in the final year of school are no longer eligible for their services, and then the parents have to fight to get their services back. That's absolutely should not happen. There should be other options to fill in the gaps to ensure that these students that get to the end of the road and are no longer eligible for whatever reason deemed are able to get the support they need.
Zaire.
Yes, Dr. Marana is an interim who leaves in January, so our first priority should be hiring a permanent special services director and who is also competent and can continue on the work that Dr. Marana has done. I would also want to make sure that we can get not as many settlements. We have 17 special education settlements in the last school year. I'd like to make sure that if we are abiding by what we say we're going to do in terms of IEPs and 504s, that the number of settlements would go down. Also, I want to streamline that process. Right now, 504s fall under the assistant principal, and IEPs fall under the special services director, but then assistant principals don't report to the special services director, they report to the principal, so things could get lost in the cracks there. And finally, with the facilities plan, I'd ask that we have more inclusion classes, therapy rooms, et cetera, to make sure that children who are in the district that need those services can get them in-house.
So Dr. Morano has performed forensics on our district, going in and really understanding where the issues and concerns are, documenting our processes, making things much more transparent, and working with our teams to make sure that they are appropriately following process with our students, that the teachers understand, both teachers that are directly responsible for our special needs students and general ed teachers. As she leaves the district, it is going to be critical for us to bring a strong administrator in to continue her work. But I also think that we need to have a full understanding of which populations we could look to as we build capacity to bring in-house and have a plan and roadmap on how to develop the programs in our school to bring more students back. Thank you. Erin.
Thanks to Dr. Marana. Our district is in a better place than it was probably 2-3 years ago. Some of the things, excuse me, some of the things that we now have are 4 supervisors of special services. We now have a defined intervention and referral service process. We now have master teachers who are going out and helping other teachers in terms of best practices in special education. But with all of this, the most important piece of special ed is making sure that our policies and procedures are in compliance. That's why we have lawsuits, because we are making decisions that are not based on the law, but are based on the discretion of employees, child study team members. We need to make sure that we maintain these policies and procedures and move forward. Thank you.
Harry.
I would start with making sure we do not have an interim director of special needs, that we have a permanent director of special needs. We need to bring a lot of the special needs kids back into the district. We need to bring the paraprofessionals back into the district rather than having them outsourced, so the paraprofessionals know our kids. We need to better train our staff in the special education curriculum. We need to streamline the 504 and the IEP plans, make it more efficient. And we need to have appropriate facilities for the special needs kids, which we currently do not have.
Karen.
I think and I know a lot of people have touched on this before, but the most vital piece in this puzzle is going to be an amazing director of special services and not an interim one. We need someone who's going to come in, who's going to inspire the community, the parents, and most importantly, the teachers to really be excited about coming to school every day and to build that professional development. But it's not just the teachers. I'd love to see more specialists, not just, my kid's OT is only in school 1 or 2 times a week. The speech therapist is only there. How about more specialists in every school so that if that child needs more access, then it's there. It's there for him or her. And not only that, but case managers. We need case managers who are not overloaded with, hundreds of kids, or there's not spanning multiple schools. How about a case manager for every school? Of course, these are not decisions for the board. These are decisions for the director of special services and the super, but we are in charge of the super, and we can impress upon him, this is what we need for success. This is what our kids need.
Okay, that concludes the sponsor questions. So we will begin now on the 3 audience questions, and everyone will have 1 minute. The first question, we'll begin with Narda again. As superb as many of our teachers are, some are not teaching as effectively as others. This is a disservice to our students as well as to other teachers and our community. What would you do to bring about fair assessment of teachers, excellent mentorship for those who need it, and a reward system for those who very much deserve it? Narda.
We've talked already about the fact that our teacher evaluations need to be done. That's the most critical thing that you have to do in order to ensure your teachers are doing what they're supposed to do. The observations need to be done, and the principal and the administration needs time to get in and do the observations. What's I think is important for our teachers that are doing extremely well is to be able to showcase the kind of work they do. They should be on road shows to all the other schools and being an example for the things that they've come up with. I think I've talked already about the fact that I am so impressed by our multi-age programs, and I just don't understand why we don't have them in every elementary school, because they're fantastic. That's my impression based on my experience, but I think that's an example of showcasing showcasing wonderful teachers and the kind of best practices that they have, and it's critical that we do that. What was the other part of the question? The question was long. I don't remember the other part of the question.
Zaire.
Sure. First, I would make sure that the teachers that we do have here, as we're hiring them, make sure that they're qualified. We've heard earlier that, if we bring in underqualified people into the district, then that will cause problems for our students down the line. Secondly, once those teachers are on board, I want to make sure that they continue to get professional development as they grow in our district. Make sure that they're aware of all the things that make this district special and unique for some of the other districts in New Jersey. And then finally, when they do have a regular and rigorous evaluation process, is based on things that they are aware of in advance. To be evaluated at your job, you need to know what you're expected to do. And when the building leaders set those expectations that are set from the administration, that the teachers are then aware of what they need to do. And then if they're not following what those, they're not following the expectations that have been set by the principals and the building leaders, then they would be judged accordingly.
Stephanie.
So when I first got on the board, we were just, as a state, taking on tenure reform. Our district implemented the Danielson framework. For several years, we did not evaluate the teachers against the full framework. And Dr. Fakera helped us understand that the full framework was critically important. And this year, we've had to do training with administrators to support them in making sure that they can evaluate against the full framework, and that will be done. That will make a huge difference with the interaction between the building administrators and the teachers, because now they're going to be getting feedback across the entire spectrum of Danielson. And so they will be able to get the learnings from that and course correct. And it's going to improve the overall ability of the administrators to ensure that we're getting from our teachers what we need.
Erin.
Supervisors need to be accountable for the teachers that they're overseeing and reviewing. We need to make sure that there is documentation, that there is counseling, that there's follow-up, that this isn't just a process where you provide feedback and no one ever comes back to the teacher in 3-6 months to see how they are doing. Once again, we need to use master teachers to be able to share their best practices. And I believe every new teacher to the district should have a mentor. Even if you have several years' experience as a teacher, you're new here. We do things differently. And we need to make sure that teachers understand how we do things and what's expected of them.
Gary.
I think the first is to start with consistent leadership and not have another principal at school every 2 years, every year and a half, because the principals are not able to get into classrooms to do the teacher evaluations. I know at one particular school, the principal has said that they cannot even get into the rooms to evaluate teachers because they're spending too much time on doing discipline, which is not correct. Maybe we need to hire additional people. But we need to follow our own district policy with regards to teacher evaluations. If a teacher has performed poorly, we need to give them the support that they need to raise their level of expectation. And if we could find it in the budget, maybe give teachers that are doing well bonuses and not grade people based on PARC scores or other standardized testing. Look for other things to evaluate the teachers on rather than just test scores.
Sharon.
I mean, I just love teachers. I do. I come from a family of teachers. I've had amazing teachers. My child has had amazing teachers in his just 2 years in this district, and I realize I'm just getting started. But it's really giving me hope for the issue that I think a lot of people are seeing as their children grow up in this district. And I think one of the ways that we can really reestablish the greatness of teachers here is through those constant evaluations. But it's not just once a year or twice a year or whatever's mandated, but we need something that's ongoing. We need to provide them feedback. When I speak to teachers at Marshall, they constantly tell me, we just wish, we had more feedback and we knew what was going on. Our teachers should be our child's offense, their defense, their coach, their cheerleader. So let's set them up for that success. Let's give them what they need so that they stay here, they're invested in our children, and our children succeed.
Hannah.
I love this question. The bottom line is principals are the instructional leaders of a building. And if a principal has to be distracted by dealing with discipline issues, then there's a problem. And I'll look at Columbia High School, where we used to have deans who handled that, so the principal could get into the classroom to help young teachers with instruction, especially now because we've lost most of our veteran staff. We're here with basically inexperienced people, and I know that many do not have mentors, they do not have the support that they need. Our children are worth a lot more than that. The other thing is that we're getting rid of excellent teachers that we shouldn't. We just got rid of an excellent teacher this spring of science. So if we let good people go and bring bad people in, we're not doing any better than we've ever done. So we have to make a change. We have to do these things. We have to help teachers to help themselves with professional development that they're asking for, not something that somebody else wants them to have. Let them decide on the things that they need in order to be successful for our children.
Thank you, Johanna. Okay, on to the second audience question, and we will begin with Thayer. I'm discouraged that some candidates are describing the district as broken rather than in a period of evaluation. Can the candidates speak to 2 successes they have identified in the district?
I would start with the fact that on a personal level, my son's getting a quality education. And he's very happy with what he's doing in school right now, and so are my wife and I with what he's been getting at his particular school. He's in a multi-age class, and I think that's something the district is doing extremely well. As Narda said earlier, it's only at 2 schools, and it should be something that we could port to the other elementary schools. Another success I would point to is our graduates. We see Columbia High School graduates doing amazing things in all different industries, whether it's the arts, whether it's finance, whether it's science, whether it's technology. We see Columbia High School graduates doing amazing things. So, and on a personal level, I just think that when you hear about all the wonderful stories when they go to college and they talk about how they were so much more prepared than their college friends because they just had this wonderful, diverse experience at this high school, then I think we are doing something right.
Stephanie.
So I'd say the fact that this community turned the corner and is willing to invest in our schools. For years, there was a lack of willingness to increase the amount of money that we were putting into our schools, and we see the effect of that with the crumbling infrastructure. And the fact that this community wholeheartedly backed our facility plan is a huge win. Another piece on the aspect of our students, Columbia High School is an amazing place. It is a pool of students that are activists, activists across many different vectors, and they come together and bring their activism to find common cause. So if you look at what happened with the climate walkout and the participation there, that was an incredible motion by those students that was supported by this community, and it should make us all very proud.
Erin.
One of the offerings at Columbia High School that many people don't know about is that we have a shared time program with Union County Votech, where students spend half a day at Columbia High School and we bus them down the Scotch Plains, and they get to study things like game design, graphic design, automotive, metalworking. My son is in that program, and it's literally changed his life. He's doing really well in that program, and he has some drive that didn't exist before. The other positive is we're a community that values the arts, and it shows. It shows in terms of offerings that we have at our schools, at school plays, at the various marching bands. You know, we're just a community that I think we put our money where our mouth is in terms of the arts.
Harry.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. I'm discouraged that some candidates are describing the district as broken rather than in a period of evaluation. Can the candidates speak to 2 successes they have identified in the district?
2 successes I think would be, and I would notify or mention in the district, would be we have a wonderful arts program, as Erin has said, and I think our community has come together. We are a very artsy district, and we put some money towards that. And also, as some of my fellow candidates have said, is the money that the towns have approved to upgrade our facilities and fix our facilities is a huge plus.
Well, I'm from Atlanta, so I'm a Braves fan, and I went to Michigan, so I'm a Wolverines fan. So I wouldn't use broken. I would say it's a rebuilding year. This is a rebuilding term. And I think the 2 successes is, first I would say, 1, Dr. Taylor. We have not an interim super, we have a super who's on contract, who will be here, who will be invested. And from all signs that I've seen, from his behavior at the board meetings to his communication with the community, I think it's going to be a good thing. And the other success that I think that I see from our district is really we are a district of action. We have a long-range facilities plan, that's an action that we're going to take. We have an integration plan, that's an action. We had an interim special services director, and she took action to repairing the special services department. So those things give me heart, and I think we're going to go from a rebuilding year to successful years shortly.
Diana.
When I think about the successes of our school district, I certainly think about our children. The other night, I judged a talent show with South Next, and I'm gonna tell you, the talent was so amazing, I was just overwhelmed. So I would have to talk about our children. I also host a Poetry Out Loud, and we have wonderful students coming in from the high school to compete with other kids across the state in the regional finals. The other thing is I'm happy that we have our librarians back. That we had voted to get rid of. I'm sorry, I didn't vote for that. It was an 8-1 vote. I voted to keep the librarians, so that was something that was really, really big here. And that we have so many things for our children to become engaged in, whether it's with the TV productions. I was down at the convention yesterday and watched Max Goldstein's short film. It was awesome. I mean, and it was a sense of pride. It was the first time I had gone down to school boards, and we weren't the school district who they use as an example of what not to do. So I was very, very excited.
Thank you, Joanna. Narda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
So one of the things is, growing up here, I was an athlete. I played lacrosse, varsity lacrosse for Marguerite Dempsey, fantastic coach that retired. So I'm very excited that we're gonna fix and repair our facilities. I'm excited that hopefully, all our sports arenas will be, invested in and repaired so that we can bring back some of our top athletes and some of our top coaches that have left, because it's important. Growing up and playing a sport was fantastic. That was how I was able to meet other people different from me, at a different socioeconomic level than me, and be friends with those people today. And the other thing is, if you look at all the Hall of Fames, the ones at CHS, the ones at SOMS, you can tell what kind of district we are, and that there are lots of successes, including children that are going to Princeton, Harvard, and so on. So there are lots of things to be excited about, but we have to be honest about what's not working well as well.
Okay. Final question, and we will begin with Stephanie. Have any of you met with students to hear about their concerns?
Absolutely. First, on the board, we have a student rep, and we are one of the few boards that have a student rep. It's not a general thing. And so our rep brings the voice of the student right to the board every meeting, and that is critically important. And so I have children in the district as well, and so I interact with students at South Orange Middle School. I interact with students at Columbia High School, and I am always trying to understand the impact of what we are doing with regard to the students, and I'll use the Code of Conduct as an example. When we were rolling the Code of Conduct out and when they were developing it, we asked that they make sure that they get the student voice involved, and they had a session with students in which their input was gathered. And so that was just to make sure not just us as board members, but that administration is listening to the students. That's really important.
Thank you. Erin?
When I was the co-chair of the Soma Action Education Committee, we had a segment of our committee which was made up of Columbia High School students. So we still, to this day, have a group chat that we ongoing have these conversations about school. And in particular, we were talking about the Code of Conduct policy earlier this week. I was asking the students, were you part of the group who were engaged in the springtime to discuss the Code of Conduct policy? And they were telling me yes, that in their English classes, the teachers went over the Code of Conduct. So I still have that link to students at Columbia High School and are able to get their feedback about things that are going on in the district.
Harry.
Well, I have 2 kids in the district, so obviously I talk to them almost every night, and they tell me what's going on. And I speak to some of their friends, and they tell me what's going on within the classrooms within the district. Unfortunately, they're both at elementary and middle school level, so I don't have the high school level yet to have spoken to a student there.
So my oldest child is in 1st grade, and what I love about kids that age is that they are brutally honest. They are not afraid to hold back. And when I talk to my son and his friends when I do pick up at aftercare, that's where I first learned about how sad the facilities are. The bathrooms are stinky. The gym was so hot. They were dripping in sweat because they had been playing in there. And that, to me, when I talk to them, is a huge red flag, and it's encouraging that the long-range facilities will address some of that. But not only do I talk to little kids, I talk to older kids, high school students who live on our block or who babysit my kids, and we talk about their experience in high school. What's it like? Is it so big? Do you feel seen? Do you feel heard? Do you feel prepared? Do you feel supported? And everybody's got a different story because that's kind of how it is in high school these days. But I love hearing about their experiences in classes and teachers.
Johanna.
Children are the absolute best, let me tell y'all something. Listen, I am now used to be that pickup person when somebody's train is late coming into the station. And so I have duties to go and pick up from school. However, I work very, very closely with students throughout this district and their parents who were my students. And now I have their students. I have students who are working with me now, who are all this technology and everything. Listen, I'm sucking up all of their energy for myself. They're telling you the truth, and if we listen, you know, listen and silent have the same letters, and it's no coincidence. So if we sit back and listen to kids and be silent, you can make some money moves, let me tell you.
So intentionally last year, I met with high school students and had conversations about the things that are happening in the schools. Some of the things that they brought to my attention, I was shocked about, and it's stuff that we need to address and still fix. I think with the hiring of the new librarians, maybe that'll help. But, you know, kids don't have the opportunity to go to the library and just, you know, take the time to study. They have to go to the cafeteria and get a pass to get to the library, and sometimes that doesn't work out. So those challenges still exist for them. And even though you have somebody that comes that represents the students here, not sure if they can actually get all the voices of our students. So it's probably critically important to continue to connect with them outside of just sitting on the board. Kind of connect like some of the other folks do. Reach out to them, have a circle time roundtable with the students, just like the principals having roundtable with us. So their voices are critical. It's critical that we listen to those voices.
Thank you, Narda. Sorry, Zaire.
Every time I see friends of my children, I stop and ask them, you know, how are you? How's school? That's how I found out things like in Marshall, as Sharon just said about, you know, the state of bathrooms and also things in some of the books in the library. Every time I see the babysitters who babysit my kids, I ask them how's school. That's how I found out about things in the high school, such as the bathrooms again, and then also the discrepancy or what the classes look like in AP and honors versus the non-AP and honors classes. When I talk to children who have left the district, I ask them how school's doing, and they talk about the differences in facilities from where they are now to where they were when they were in this district. And I'm glad that we're finally tackling that. So every time I see somebody that I know well, I talk to them and ask them what they're doing and how their schools are doing.
Wonderful. Now we're going to wrap up with the up to 2 minute closing. And since we began in alphabetical thank you. Order. I must be tired. It's been a long day. We'll conduct the closings in reverse alphabetical order, starting with you, Johanna.
I am running for my 3rd term on the board. Now I want to ask you guys a question. If you wanted to go someplace and have a good meal by a good chef, and they're going to prepare that meal for you, and you know they have the experience to do it, as versus to going someplace that's upstart and somebody's going to tell you what they might do, you're going to go with that experience. The same thing if you're going to see a doctor. You want someone who has experience, expertise in the area. I'm sitting here in this horseshoe with more experience and education than I think anybody else sitting here, probably in this room. The time that I have spent in this district, I won't even begin to try to add up. But I will add up the times that you have voted for me and put me back in office. And I'm just going to be very brief because I understand brevity is good when it's getting late. And I'm not used to getting out of this horseshoe so early. So I'm really excited tonight. But I'm going to ask you humbly to give me your vote again. A vote for me is a vote for children. A vote for me is a vote for the taxpayer. A vote for me is a vote for those seniors and people who don't have children in the district to know that your money is going to be spent well. And a vote for me is a vote for the truth. I am not going to lie to you. Please vote for Johanna Wright. Vote right. Vote right. Vote right. Vote right. It is the right time to give the right vote for the right candidate. Vote right. Thank you.
Thank you, Johanna. Sharon.
Vote right.
Oh, God. Vote line 2. I wanted to take the opportunity of the closing statement. We just spent an hour and a half-ish, whatever, hearing what I thought about the issues that are concerning to most of us. And I wanted to, as a first-time candidate, to kind of just share a little bit about my story and why I felt compelled to run. I mentioned earlier I'm a journalist. I'm an editor. I've worked online. I've worked in magazines. I've worked on across beats, fashion, beauty, health, home, all kinds of things. And I mentioned that because I want to convey that I am not afraid of any subject. And I can get to the facts and I can talk to the experts. And I'm not afraid to ask questions, little questions, big questions. There are no wrong questions. And I think that's important when you consider the role of a board member. If I don't know something, I will find it and I will research it and I will figure out what the truth is. And that's important to me, truth and honesty and respect and kindness. And I think that we all could probably use a little bit of that now, especially in October, National Bullying Prevention Month. I have a young family. I mentioned my oldest child. He's 6. I've got a 4-year-old and also an almost 2-year-old. And I say that because I have not been in the district. I don't have the experience. I don't have the preconceptions that others may bring about where we've been and what we have done. I'm here. I've got fresh energy. I've got a new outlook. And I want to make the schools better. I want to make them better for my kids, sure, but I want to make them better for all kids in special ed, all kids in gen ed, all kids who are in talented and gifted or gifted and talented, all kids who are struggling and need more supports. We need to make sure that all of our students are supported. I had an excellent education when I was growing up, and I want that more than anything for every child in this district, not just mine, but yours and all the kids who are not born yet, who are not here yet, who are not enrolled yet. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the President's Council for hosting this forum debate, and also for all of you for taking your time to come to listen to all of us tonight. I am honored to be running for a seat on the South Orange Board of Education. I am asking for your vote on Tuesday, November 5th. Your participation in this election is as important as we embark on a $160 million facilities and integration plan. As a father of a young family and a resident of South Orange for 39 years, I have a vested interest in our school district and its future. I want to ensure that our school district gives all children a high-quality, safe education that should be expected with our high tax dollars. I also want to ensure that our children and their families have a voice that will be heard. I will ensure that our children and their families have a school district that meets their educational, psychological, and social needs. Since I've graduated from college, I've held numerous leadership and volunteer responsibilities. I am a life member of the South Orange Rescue Squad. I'm a member of the Millburn Short Hills Volunteer First Aid Squad. I've been the co-vice chair and the treasurer of the South Orange Democrats. I've been the president of the class of the Lehigh University class of 1995 since I graduated. I've been the reunion chair for the class of 1995 for all reunions since 2000. I've been an emergency medical technician since 1996. I've been on the South Mountain PTA both as a treasurer and parliamentarian. I serve on the South Orange Middle School HSA as the Board of Education Liaison. I was recently appointed to the State of New Jersey PTA on the Health and Safety Committee and also the Family Engagement Committees, and I'm an owner of a local small business. My goals and priorities, if elected to the Board of Education, would be as follows. I want to improve accountability in the school district, improve communication at all levels of the school district, increase transparency in school district decisions, improve school safety, encourage community involvement in our schools, establish equality in our schools, support our teachers, improve the quality of education with modern approaches, technologies, and equipment,
Thank
and
you,
encourage
Carrie.
independent and innovative thinking.
Thank you. Sorry, that's your time.
Okay.
Erin?
I've been a resident of Maplewood since 2003. My son is currently a senior at Columbia High School. And I joke that, you know, right now I could be home eating bonbons, but instead I'm here. I'm running because I care. I care about what goes on in our school district. And as I said earlier, I don't want current students, future students to go through what I've gone through with the school district in terms of constantly having to advocate for your child. We all should be able to send our kids out the front door every day into spaces where folks care about them, or nurturing environments, supportive environments. My history in our district has mainly been as an advocate on behalf of parents of struggling students. I think my voice is needed on the board because we don't have anyone on the board with my level of experience and knowledge about what it's like to be a struggling student or the parent of a special needs student. I think my reputation in this town is pretty clear that I'm honest and effective and I have integrity. And I hope I have your vote. And just in my last 30 seconds, I want to give a plug to Thayer Joshua, who is my running mate. He's been here for only 5 years, but he's engaged in our community already. He's part of community organizations. He's part of district committees. I think we need his knowledge and his dedication on our board, and I hope you vote for us on November 5th.
Thank you. Stephanie.
So I would like to thank the President's Council and the League of Women Voters for conducting this very thoughtful forum and for the big crowd. I mean, this is amazing. So I'm just so happy that so many people in our community chose to come out tonight to make sure they were staying abreast of the issues and all of the candidates and where we stand. We are really on the cusp of a generational change in this district. The things that are going to be happening over the next 3 years will set the tone, it will set the direction for this district and where we will be for the future of our kindergartners today and the children that come behind them. As we do this, it is imperative that we have strong leaders, strong experience, and people with a complete commitment to equity. Because this district, equity is not an option. We have, for years, said that we were committed to this, and we've seen little steps along the way, but in the past 4 years, we have seen what actually doing the work looks like. And when you look at what we've done with cultural competency, when you look at what we've done with restorative justice, when you look at what just implementing access and equity meant for Columbia High School, opening up the access to our AP classes. And then you look at what transpired in how we looked at our math curriculum and took away the hyper levels that were actually holding back all students. The new image of equality, equity, where you see the fence and you see people on boxes, the new image is about justice. It's where you actually remove the barriers. And I'm committed to making sure we remove the barriers for all of our students in this district. I've proven it over 6 years, and I will continue that work if you will vote for me on November 5th.
Thank you, Stephanie. Zaire.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Thank you, League of Women Voters and President's Council for putting on this event. And to those of you watching this later, thank you. My name is Thayer Joshua. My wife and I have 2 boys, a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. And as Erin said, she could be home eating bonbons. I could be home making up Peppa Pig characters with my boys. But I'm here because it is a very exciting time. We have finally passed our long-range facilities plan. We finally have begun to seriously tackle the topic of integration in our elementary schools. And I want to make sure that I continue to be involved in that process. I've joined the Parenting Center's Intentional Integration Committee in order to figure out how this will affect my 2 sons who will be in schools until September of 2021 when that plan is scheduled to go into effect. I also want to make sure that we help get this right, because if we get this right, this will work its way up the school district, and this school district which does have a history of not necessarily always handling black children, particularly black boys, well. I want to make sure that my 2 black sons don't have the same experience that some of the other parents that I've spoken to have. Also, just the few seconds I have, my professional, I'm a finance professional by trade. As I said, I have 2 finance degrees, one from BS from Drexel and an MBA from Columbia. But my passion has always been children. When I was in college, I taught a junior achievement financial literacy class with that program. I've also always been volunteering. I was a mentor with the Refugee Project, Everybody Wins. I mentor when they asked me to be on the board to help them further their mission of getting first-generation students to college. And even now that I'm here, I've joined other organizations as well. I've always had a passion for children and their learning, and I want to continue that work on the board. And I hope you vote for me and Erin November 5th, 12 days away.
Thank you. Narda.
So NARDA for BOE, it's quite simple. NARDA for BOE. You want real change, you want fresh ideas, new voices. It's NARDA for BOE on November 5th. Running this year, I've experienced challenges. I've experienced open arms and frowns of disapproval. And, either way, I'm still very excited to be here and run again. I want us to have a group of people that are willing to truly work together and be truly inclusive and behave that way in public, online, anywhere you are. If you represent yourself and organizations, special interest groups in a manner that doesn't show that your agenda includes all, then you shouldn't be running for the Board of Ed. It's really important that we make a decision on November 5th to make real change. We're going in direction now, a better direction that we went in before as a board, but we still have a lot of things that we need to work on. And it's critically important that this time, again, you vote for NARDA for BOE, because if you don't, you're going to end up with the same things that you got last year. You asked for communication, you got your public speaks policy to, put in place. Now you can't come and talk and ask about whatever you want. It has to be on the agenda. So if you want real change, you have to vote for NARDA for BOE on November 5th. You can go to my website. And again, I'm here for the children. I'm excited to be here. And I look forward to your vote on November 5th.
Okay, here's my closing. Thank you to the candidates and to all attending this evening and to those watching at home. Good luck to everyone running and to those who have to choose from this terrific group. Thank you to tonight's sponsors, Kathleen Bailey and Liz Gordon from the President's Council, Michelle Bobrower and Kathleen Leventhal from the South Orange Maplewood League, who also doubled as our timekeepers this evening. It was a pleasure working with all of you on this event. Here are some important dates to remember. October 29th is the deadline to apply to receive a mail-in ballot by mail. Applications should be available on your local or county clerk's website. November 4th, 3 p.m. is the deadline to apply to receive a mail-in ballot in person at the county clerk's office. And of course, everyone, kindly remember to vote on November 5th if you haven't already done so by mail. Michelle, did you want to say something?
I want to echo my thanks to all of you in attendance for your politeness and for your listening, to the candidates for your forthrightness and willingness to share your opinions. Thank you. And of course, to the President's Council. I want to just be a little more specific about voting. For those of you who have previously, in the past 2 years, requested a vote-by-mail ballot, you are on the list, and you will get a vote-by-mail ballot this time as well. If you do not want to, you must either fill that out and vote that way, or go to the polls and fill out a provisional ballot. If you want to go to the polls in the future, you must notify the county clerk in writing that you want to do so. The positions that we're voting for on November 5th are Board of Ed, Maplewood Township Committee, At-Large Freeholder, Essex County Register, and New Jersey Assembly. Usually, there is a lack of enthusiastic turnout for these midterm elections. I urge you to go and let us change the trajectory and make sure that we go to vote. As someone said recently, this is not a vote for the president. This is a vote for your kids' education, for potholes in the street, for the quality of your water. Make sure you go vote for local issues because they affect you directly. Thank you all, and happy voting.